Hey, welcome back to the Espresso Outlet YouTube channel. So the other day we have our Turin CF64V grinder and we used it for espresso. We also did an unboxing, so if you haven't seen those yet, you might want to go check those out. But today, I think a lot of people, what they're buying a lot of these grinders for is just a multi-purpose grinder. And remember, this is primarily designed for espresso. It has espresso burrs in it, but there's probably going to be some point in time that you want to do some sort of a drip. So today we're going to do a V60. I expect a couple fines, but I mean, that's to be expected with a burr that's more designed for espresso. So I'm gonna get set up and let's just make a cup of V60 together. So I'm planning to do a ratio of 18 grams of coffee to 300 grams of water. Let's make sure our water is nice and hot. We have our V60 filter right here, and I like to crease them. We'll do a quick rinse of the filter. Next, I'm going to get 18 grams of beans. Have these El Salvador Cerro Las Arañas. It's been very good. I really like it for espresso, but I've noticed after about 2.5 weeks or so, it's really good for drip, especially if you run it a bit slow. Normally I don't use my hands, but I don't have my scoop. So have 18 grams of beans. Let's get it ground. I think just for the sake of this video, let's go ahead and put it at the lowest RPM setting of 800. And I've kind of dialed this in. I've been running this, let's see, about 57. Yours could be a bit different. I've gone as low as about 54 and as high as 65. And I found, even though there's a couple fines in this, it tastes the best at about this setting for this particular coffee. So I'm going to go ahead and dump them in. And we're going to cold start. It's been staying pretty clean. If your plasma generator doesn't seem to be working very good, you can always stick a brush up in there. I've not really had too many issues with this grinder, but I do see a lot of people say after a few weeks that it's not working as well on some of the other grinders. So I like to keep my chute clean. It's really important to keep your grinder nice and clean. Okay, so let's just pre-wet our filter. Make sure we get any of the taste out of the filter before we start brewing our cup. And dump off to the side. Next, using our Turin scale, the feature that I really like is it can calculate our brew ratio. So I like to tear out the scale before we put our coffee grounds in. So we have our coffee right here. We're going to put it in, and you'll see that it shows the weight. And what we want to do before we start is click this start stop button, and it's going to count down. Start in the middle, get everything wet. You don't want any grounds that are dry, and I like to do about a 60 to 70 gram bloom, and we're going to wait about 30 seconds or so. Okay, with it bloom pretty much done, you can see some of the gases. Let's do our first pour. Start in the middle. I like to go out to the edges. Okay, so we're gonna call this pretty much done. It ran a bit long. I've ran it a lot coarser, and I feel like when I ran it coarser, it didn't taste quite as good for this particular bean. But about 3.5 minutes, give or take, maybe a little bit longer for this drawdown. We can take a quick look at the top, and you can see that there's like a little bit of sludge on top, but that's to be expected. This is an espresso grinder really by the way that it's designed and made, or the burrs are. but I've been really getting pretty good cups of coffee out of this grinder. Now, I've used like the DF64V, I've used the DF64 Gen 2, and I would say that my beds always look about the same on the top with these stock DLC burrs. So we're gonna let this cool for a second and we're going to take a quick taste test. So I like to let my coffee just rest for a minute after I brew it. It's been sitting for about 3 minutes. If you have that just really hot cup, you're probably gonna burn your tongue. You're not gonna really enjoy the flavors, so it's still pretty hot. We're on setting about 57, and we have this Cerro Las Rañas coffee and a V60. So let's give it a quick taste test. Really good. It's still pretty warm. I mentioned that at least for this particular bean, I enjoyed it running a little bit slower, which is really not the way that I normally do my V60, but it tastes really spot on. Lots of like raisin and kind of fig undertones. You get just a slight fruitiness, but you also get some of those like caramel type flavors out of this. So just one quick taste before we finish up this video. But again, this is more designed to be an espresso grinder rather than just a drip grinder. But you could put some SSP multi-purpose burrs in. You could get a more brew-centered burr for this grinder if that's something that you're only going to use this for brew. I feel like it can do both quite well, but do expect a couple more fines in it than maybe a more brew-only burr. So one last quick taste. Really impressed with the flavor. I've always had really good cups of drip out of my DF64 Gen 2. That's really my go-to at home, or the DF83, but that didn't really relate to this as closely. So again, thank you for watching. If you have any questions about this grinder or any of the other grinders, leave a comment below, or you can reach out to us on our email. But for today, consider liking and subscribing this video if you found this video to be helpful, as we like to do videos like this to help you make decisions on if this product is right for you. But for today, thanks for watching.